I've had depression for as long as I can remember. People would often tell me to get over it, to quit being lazy, and to find something enjoyable. But that's the funny thing about depression, isn't it? It's not something one can just get over, nor is it easily banished by finding something enjoyable. Sure, it can help, but depression is a tricky thing that eats away at a person, leaving that person nothing but an empty husk. It all started way back in my childhood. I was always that super quiet kid that stood in the back of the classroom while everyone else played and enjoyed themselves. I would be far too shy to approach anyone, and whenever anyone did try to talk to me, I'd crumble under the pressure. That crumbling would cause me to say the wrong thing or to say nothing entirely. It wasn't long before I was branded as the weird kid in school. This had a major impact on my social status. No one wanted to be my friend. No one wanted to interact with me. Hell, no one wanted to even talk to me. Well, except one kid. His name was Scott. And he was an absolute tool. He was our local bully. One of those stereotypical tough guys who takes pleasure in ridiculing and beating those weaker than him. He had my number from the very beginning. Every day after school, his lackeys would wait for me to come outside and take turns beating on me until they got bored, or on a good day when a teacher would tell them to stop. Eventually, I got smarter and began to sneak out through a side door in the school. I'd make it home unscathed, but that's when the torment would truly begin. I wouldn't have anyone to talk to, and no friends to hang out with. I'd just sit alone in my room and stare at the wall until I'd wake up the next morning and do it all over again. Things didn't get particularly bad until high school. At that point, nothing seemed to make me happy or sad. Colors looked bland to me. Food tasted just as boring. I had no drive to do extracurricular activities, and I lacked the confidence to attempt to speak to others. That was all right though, because for all of his hurtful remarks, Scott still talked and interacted with me, even if it was only to fight or insult me. I tried talking with my parents about it, but they just gave me the age-old, "We're proud of you no matter what," or "You're just gonna have to stand up for yourself." I actually tried that once, and spending an afternoon in a dumpster was my reward. I turned to teachers and counselors next, both of which yielded similar results. There was one place I knew I could be happy, and that was the internet. My mother had bought me a PC at the start of high school, and it was the best thing she had ever done for me. On the internet, I could be anonymous. I could speak with people from around the world whom I've never met before. Or, more importantly, people who had never met me before. I would shut myself in my room for hours on end, playing games and chatting with strangers. It may sound weird, but this was true happiness for me, something I didn't believe existed. I found myself yearning for the end of school each day so I could get home and log on. Somehow, Scott's radar picked up that I was starting to feel happy, and he just couldn't have that. He made it his sole purpose to break me of that happiness. He did it 2 weeks ago at the start of October. Him and his lackeys cornered me in the bathroom, beat me up, and tore the clothes off my back. They then proceeded to shove me out into the hallway as soon as the bell rang. I don't know if you've ever been naked in front of hundreds of people before, but let me tell you, it wasn't fun. The laughter that erupted could have been heard from the moon. They laughed, mocked, pointed, and stared. One of the teachers quickly saw what was happening and covered me with a jacket before taking me to the principal's office. My parents were notified and I was taken home. I sat alone in my room for hours. My parents would occasionally attempt to talk to me, but I'd just tell them to leave. No one could help me. Not even my computer. It was then that I noticed I had a new window on my PC that wasn't there when I left for school. The website said, "Mentally healed. Tell us your problems and start healing today." Below that was a short questionnaire that asked me for basic information. Deciding why the hell not, I filled it out and clicked submit. The next page that popped up was another questionnaire, albeit a more in-depth set of questions asking me about my life and the problems that I was facing. Finally, it asked me to explain in my own words everything that happened, and I submitted it. The screen went white for a few moments, before a new message popped up that read, "Thank you for your submission. Your healing has begun." I thought this was odd as nothing had happened. No one had messaged me. Then I started to kick myself for giving out all my personal information so frivolously. Though, after angrily filling out the questions, it actually helped me calm down a bit. I was just assuming they would send me a pamphlet in the mail talking about inner strength or something. Regardless, I clicked off the website, and since it was the weekend, I tried to relax, mentally preparing myself for the upcoming week. That was until I received a knock on the door on Sunday. It was the police. They wanted to know my whereabouts the previous day and if I had done anything unusual. I told them I hadn't, that I didn't like to leave the house, and that I had a very bad day on Friday, though they knew that and said it was the reason they were here. They said they had found a body of a classmate of mine in a creek on the other side of town. After researching a bit into his history and speaking with some of his friends, they all seemed to point the finger at me, saying he had played a prank on me and made me upset. I was stunned. Was Scott truly dead? Even though the officer hadn't come right out and said it, I could tell that's who he was talking about. My mother spoke with the officer and told him that she had brought me home immediately from school that day, and I hadn't left my room since. He didn't seem to believe it, but the officer left anyway, saying he'll be in touch. I wasn't sure what to believe at that point, but I'd be lying if I said I felt sad that he was gone. That guy was an absolute menace, and it wasn't just me he tormented. He took out his wrath on everyone who didn't meet his standards. I just happened to get the majority of his attention. Anyways, the weekend had ended, but school was canceled for a couple days surrounding his death. I just spent my time as usual in my room on my PC during that time. It was a few days ago that I received another pop-up from that website. It said, "Healing complete," and below that it had a little attachment at the bottom of the screen. I clicked on it, and what I saw made me nauseous. I almost vomited all over my keyboard. There were pictures of Scott. He was lying in a muddy ditch. His face had been completely ripped off. His eyes were missing as well. If it wasn't for that Letterman jacket he loved so much, I probably wouldn't have recognized him. Another pop-up appeared after a minute, and this one asked me how I would like to submit payment. I was a high school student. I didn't have any money, so I closed out of the website and tried to push it out of my mind. The next morning I awoke and I found that the website had appeared once again. This time it said, "Payment requested. Please submit immediately." And below those words had new attachments. They were pictures of my house, at night, specifically from outside my window. I instantly stood up and managed to swipe my mother's credit card from her purse. I submitted the information and clicked send. A screen then appeared and said, "Thank you for your submission." I thought I was done with everything. That was until this morning. I went downstairs for breakfast and my mother mentioned in passing that her bank had called in regards to a random $1,000 payment from an unverified third party. She told them it was weird and she hadn't made any $1,000 payments, so she had them cancel it. I'm not sure what to do anymore. Do I just tell my parents everything? Or maybe the police? Do you think they'll help me? Do you think they can help me? I'm starting to freak out and I don't know how to stop it. All I know is that once whoever it is that runs that website realizes the payment didn't go through, they'll be back. And they'll get their payment, one way or another.